I moved to Cedar Ridge for peace. Retired after 30 years as an electrical systems engineer, I craved quiet mornings, my own workshop, and a community where I could give back in small, meaningful ways. The house I bought had good bones, a detached garage with a flat roof, perfect for solar panels, and neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. It was everything I wanted. The solar array came next. Not just a hobby, an upgrade. I wired the system into my property's grid and then extended it, with the HOA's approval, to power every streetlight on our cul-de-sac. The city had been slashing public infrastructure budgets, and our street was headed for darkness unless someone stepped up. I did. The panels ran flawlessly. No outages, no maintenance complaints. The lights came on at dusk, off at dawn, like clockwork. I never asked for compensation, just a nod of appreciation, and I got it. The old HOA board, led by a no-nonsense Vietnam vet named Bill, even thanked me publicly at a summer barbecue. I didn't need fanfare. Knowing I'd helped was enough. Then Karen showed up. She moved into the corner lot across from mine, prime real estate with a perfectly manicured lawn and a wraparound porch she had repainted within a week of closing. Her SUV had out-of-state plates and a custom license frame that read, "Making Neighborhoods Great Again." Her arrival was swift and surgical. 3 weeks after move-in, she was at the HOA meeting, dressed like a prosecutor, and brimming with unsolicited ideas. And just like that, she was voted onto the board. No one expected what came next. Karen didn't just want a voice. She wanted control. Within a month, she'd rewritten the community bylaws, reshuffled the board members with her own allies, and introduced new aesthetic regulations that sounded more like military code than neighborhood guidelines. The solar panels were her first target. She called them visually aggressive, claimed they reflected sunlight into her bedroom. Never mind the fact her house was positioned to the northwest, and the panels faced due south. She said they clashed with the architectural harmony of the neighborhood, a phrase she used often, and with no clear definition. I invited her over to see how the system worked, to show her the setup and explain its benefit. She declined. "It's not personal," she said, clipboard clutched tightly. But the community standards have evolved. These panels, however noble their purpose, violate the updated external modification code. I pointed out that the panels had been approved 5 years ago, were grandfathered in, and powered the streetlights for free. She didn't blink. That may have been acceptable under a less organized board, but aesthetics matter. People pay a premium to live here. She walked off before I could respond, her heels clicking like a judge's gavel. The next HOA meeting was packed. Karen unveiled her beautification initiative with glossy pamphlets and vague promises. My panels were used as a before example. I stood to speak, tried to remind the board and the neighbors what those panels did. Some looked uncomfortable, most stayed quiet. Karen held a vote to revoke my previous approval and demanded the removal or modification of all exterior mechanical structures not conforming to the new guidelines. The motion passed by 1 vote, her vote. I left that meeting with clenched fists and a tight jaw, but not defeat. I wasn't going to rip down a system that literally lit the path for everyone. I filed an appeal, citing my prior agreement, the city permits, and the environmental benefit. The board acknowledged receipt. Karen sent a notice of non-compliance 2 days later. I stood in my driveway the next morning, looking up at the panels glinting in the morning sun. They were silent, steady, unbothered by HOA politics. I had built them to last decades. Karen, on the other hand, was trying to erase them with paperwork and power games. A war was brewing, and she didn't even know what she was stepping into. She thought she was dealing with a hobbyist. She didn't realize she was up against the guy who powered her porch light. It happened on a Tuesday. I walked out just after sunrise, coffee in hand, and something felt wrong. The roof looked dull, off. The usual shimmer of my solar panels was gone. I stepped closer, squinting. From the ground, I could see a strange, streaky sheen on the tempered glass surface. I climbed the ladder slowly, hoping it was dew, or maybe dust. It wasn't. Paint, thick, matte black paint, sloppily rolled over every inch of my panels. For a moment, I just stood there, stunned, not angry, not even surprised, just numb. It was deliberate, thorough, and recent. The paint hadn't fully dried. My system, designed to absorb sunlight, now reflected none. It was dead. I rushed down and checked the charge controller in the garage. Zero input. My system had flatlined. The panels weren't just mine. They powered the entire streetlight network. 12 fixtures along Magnolia Loop, every one of them wired into my system, through a legal agreement with the HOA from years ago. With those panels smothered, the street would be dark tonight. I checked my security cameras, heart hammering. The footage was grainy, low light, but unmistakable. At 2:14 a.m., someone entered my property with a ladder, a bucket, and a paint roller. They wore a hoodie pulled low, but it didn't hide the glint of gold sneakers or the swish of a pink tracksuit. Karen. She didn't even try to hide. Confident, arrogant, untouchable. I called the police. A pair of officers arrived within the hour, but the conversation was predictably hollow. You didn't actually see her face. The younger one asked, glancing at the footage. No, but I've got motion detection timestamps, property boundaries, paint residue, and, come on, look at the outfit. The older officer sighed. Even if we suspect it's her, it's not enough for criminal charges. You'd need clear facial ID or an eyewitness. So you're telling me she can walk onto my roof, destroy $10,000 worth of equipment, and just get away with it? For now, the older officer said, not unkindly, but document everything. If this escalates, you'll want a full paper trail. That night, the street went dark. Every single street lamp blinked off at sunset, leaving Magnolia Loop swallowed in shadow. No warm glow beneath the trees. No porch light spills reflecting off parked cars. Just silence, interrupted only by confused voices and the flicker of phone flashlights. By 10 o'clock, they started showing up at my door. First was the Delgados from 2 houses down, then old Mr. Finney from the corner. A young couple I hadn't met before. One after another, they knocked, polite but bewildered. Hey, did something happen to the lights? Are the solar panels broken? My kids are scared to sleep without the glow from the streetlight. I told them the truth. Calmly, clearly, without naming names. They were vandalized last night, I said. Painted over. The system is non-functional until I replace the panels. A heavy silence always followed. They knew. No one said her name, but every glance drifted across the street toward her porch, where Karen sat in a lawn chair under a string of battery-powered fairy lights, sipping wine like she hadn't just knocked out half the neighborhood's infrastructure. No one dared confront her. They were afraid of fines, citations, or retaliation. HOA power wasn't just on paper. It was leverage over your home, your yard, even your mailbox color. But I wasn't afraid. I was done playing defense. The next morning, I filed a formal complaint with the city's Utility Oversight Board. I also sent a cease and desist to the HOA, citing violation of a municipal energy partnership. Then I made one more call, an anonymous tip to Channel 9 News. That Friday, the headline ran during the evening segment, "Neighborhood in the Dark," after HOA interferes with solar streetlight grid. They used stock footage of suburban streets and interviewed a few unnamed residents who mumbled vaguely about regulation conflicts. But the seed was planted. People started asking questions. The mayor's office issued a public inquiry. Karen's smug demeanor cracked slightly. She held a press conference on her front lawn, claiming the panels violated aesthetic harmony and were never properly documented. But I had paperwork, city permits, dated HOA emails, and photos of the original installation, signed and stamped by the old board. She'd stepped into a storm she didn't understand, and now I was ready to show her what power really looked like: renewable, resilient, and patient. By Monday morning, the neighborhood was on edge. Trash bins were kicked over. Someone had scribbled, "No solar, no control," in chalk on the sidewalk near my driveway. Childish, sure, but the message was clear. Karen was lashing out, and she had no plans to back down. Her face-tight smile at the HOA's emergency meeting said it all. She still thought she was winning, but behind that brittle confidence, I saw something else: panic. The news coverage had spread. An energy consultant I once mentored called to ask what in God's name was going on in my neighborhood. A state assemblyman emailed me directly, inquiring whether my system had been connected under the 2018 Municipal Green Corridor Incentive, which, fortunately for me and disastrously for Karen, it had. That law meant the solar network wasn't just an HOA perk. It was part of a publicly funded, community-supported infrastructure initiative. Disabling it wasn't just sabotage. It bordered on interference with municipal services. Karen hadn't painted over my panels. She'd painted herself into a corner. Still, the system was dead, and I couldn't let the street remain in darkness. So I started repairs, but not quietly. On Wednesday, a flatbed truck rolled up with gleaming new panels, twice the wattage of the originals, and equipped with anti-glare coating. I hired a professional crew, local guys in neon vests and hard hats, who set up bright orange fencing around my yard and ran drills and saws like a construction zone on overdrive. Noise complaints poured into the HOA. I responded with scanned permits and a laminated copy of the city ordinance that overruled aesthetic HOA codes for registered energy systems. Karen came stomping over around noon, her pink tracksuit replaced by a beige suit that looked more courtroom than cul-de-sac. "This is harassment," she snapped. "You're trying to intimidate me with all this spectacle." "No, Karen," I said calmly, motioning to the crew tightening a solar rail. "I'm restoring community services. Legally." She pointed a finger at my face, trembling. "You think the city will protect you forever? These people don't care about solar panels. They want peace. You're disrupting that." Behind her, a few neighbors peeked from behind curtains. One or two stood in their driveways, listening. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "You disabled a municipal-backed power source that kept this street safe at night. You trespassed on private property, destroyed infrastructure, and lied about it. You think you're still in control." She backed off, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. "You've made a powerful enemy," she hissed, then turned on her heel and marched back across the street. I didn't sleep much that night, not out of fear, but anticipation. Every corner of my gut told me she wasn't done. And I was right. At 3:03 a.m., a dull thud hit the side of my garage, then another. I checked the security feed. Grainy images of two teenagers in hoodies, lobbing bricks over my hedge. One caught, a light fixture, sending sparks skittering across the driveway. Karen's fingerprints weren't on the bricks, but her influence was all over the act. Her son Trey had been suspended last year for vandalizing the community pool's pumps. The older kid matched his lanky frame. I sent the footage to the police again. This time, they took it seriously. An officer visited the next afternoon and took statements. I handed over a full security timeline. It was no longer about Karen and me. It was about escalating danger to the neighborhood. And then came the final straw. An unmarked envelope arrived at every doorstep, slipped into mailboxes. No postage, no return address. Inside was a printed flyer with bold text, "The Solar Scam. How one man hijacked our neighborhood." It was riddled with lies, claims that I'd been profiting from the panels, that I'd secretly charged the HOA fees, that I was using public money for personal gain. It was desperate, and it was exactly what I needed. I compiled the flyer, the footage, and the vandalism reports into a single digital file and sent it to every member of the local media, along with a short statement. Gave this neighborhood free light for 5 years. Someone wants to take that away. Why? By sunset, the panels were online again. The streetlights flickered back to life. Warm, steady, golden. One by one, porches lit up. A few neighbors even clapped. Across the street, Karen's fairy lights flickered and failed. For the first time since she arrived, her house sat in shadow. 2 weeks after the power returned, Magnolia Loop felt different. There was still tension in the air. Karen's last desperate attempts had burned too many bridges. But the mood had shifted. Neighbors waved more often. Kids played under the now reliable glow of streetlights. For the first time in years, the HOA didn't feel like a sword hanging over our heads. It felt neutered. Karen, however, didn't disappear. She doubled down. She launched a solar reform committee, posting flyers at the community center and slipping pamphlets under doors. She hosted outdoor meetings with folding chairs, lecturing about energy sovereignty and visual pollution. Attendance never broke 5 people. 2 of them were her cousins from out of town. Still, her eyes stayed sharp, watching, waiting. But her timing was off. Her next move landed at the worst possible moment, right as the city concluded its formal investigation. I was working in the garage when the mailman handed me the envelope, thick, embossed with the city seal. I opened it carefully. Notice of findings: Municipal Energy Infrastructure, Investigation Re, Magnolia Loop Solar Grid, Partnership. The language was dry, but the verdict was unmistakable. The HOA, under Karen's leadership, had interfered with city-supported infrastructure. Her actions constituted a breach of public trust and left the HOA liable for damages. The city wasn't suing me. They were siding with me. They were also demanding a formal audit of the HOA's finances and procedural decisions over the past year. I scanned the last paragraph twice, then a third time. The city had appointed a temporary oversight administrator. Until further notice, the HOA board was suspended. Karen had lost her throne. That night, I attended the first open forum in months. It was held in the community clubhouse, packed shoulder to shoulder. People who hadn't shown their faces in years came out murmuring, half hopeful, half cautious. Karen walked in late, chin high, as if she hadn't just been dethroned. She tried to sit at the head table, but city reps politely redirected her to the general seating. She sat 2 rows behind me. I didn't look back. The administrator, Ms. Dorsey, a calm woman with a clipboard and a no-nonsense tone, began the meeting by outlining the city's findings. She used words like malfeasance, unauthorized enforcement, and unlawful asset damage. You could feel the room lean forward. Then Ms. Dorsey did something no one expected. She invited residents to speak, one by one. Neighbors rose. Mr. Finney talked about how the lights helped him walk safely at night. The Delgados explained how their kids felt safer playing outside. A young mother from the far end of the loop said her daughter used to have nightmares in the dark until the panels lit the street again. No one mentioned Karen by name, but every word was a strike at her legacy. When it was my turn, I kept it short. I didn't set out to lead anything. I just wanted to share the sun. What happened was ugly, but maybe now we build something better. The applause wasn't thunderous, but it was sincere. Karen stood near the end, clearly rattled. Her voice wavered. The usual venom dulled, too. A simmer. She accused the city of overreach, claimed she had only acted in the community's interest, said my system was never truly welcomed. But it was too late. The crowd didn't boo. They didn't even argue. They just turned away. The worst punishment of all. The next morning, Karen's porch was bare. No more flags, no signs, no fairy lights. Just a single moving truck parked by the curb. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't need to. Her reign was over. The new HOA board, elected weeks later, looked nothing like the old one. A school teacher, a retired engineer, a nurse, people with jobs, lives, and common sense. People who didn't view power as a weapon. We held a barbecue under the warm streetlights one Saturday evening. Everyone brought something. Laughter rang out beneath the trees. I looked up at the panels, humming gently in the dusk, and smiled. Later that night, I stood at the edge of my driveway, sipping from a paper cup, when a voice called out behind me, "You ever think about running for city council?" I turned. It was Ms. Dorsey, clipboard tucked under her arm. I chuckled. "I'm an engineer. I solve problems quietly." She smiled. "You just solved a pretty loud one." I didn't answer right away, because maybe, just maybe, she was right.